He is going to throw. Drew Pearson. He got it. Touchdown.
All right. Welcome back to Now About Them Cowboys. This is episode number 11. Today, this morning, we are joined by Joe Knows at JoeJ_Clark on the Twitter from the New York Giants corner, from the Toilets to Titles Network team. He is the main man behind the editing, content, coordinating, all that good stuff. Joe, how are we doing this morning?
I am doing great. And Cowboys fans, good morning. Thanks for having me on here. I really appreciate it. And I believe this is the first time we are crossing streams here
Yeah.
at the Toils and Titles with our NFL-centric teams, New York
Yes.
Giants corner, and Now About Them Cowboys. And we got at least 3 other teams too. So I'm hoping to get us all together before the start of the season.
Man, it's like a Marvel movie where, heroes from different
Yeah, the
movies
Avengers are coming together.
Yeah. I
Either that or
love it.
Voltron.
Yeah. Yes. So this morning we're talking NFC East. That's why we brought Joe on. So we're gonna rank. So we got shout out to Shay. Shay tweeted that on the Twitter from the Ramsaholic show, and Shay is doing rankings starting this Wednesday. You could check it out of the NFC West. He's talking offense, NFC West position groups, and I saw Shay do that. I was inspired. And we're going to rank the top 5 at each position for the offensive side of the football this morning in the NFC East. And I figured who better to bring in? We needed somebody with some outside. We don't have any Eagles fans at Toilets and Titles yet, or any Commanders fans, but we do have a Giants fan. I figured let's bring one in to balance this out.
Yeah,
So
totally.
we are not too biased. And you know what? The funny thing is sometimes I may be too opposite of biased. I might put my team down. You do the same?
It's in the blood. People don't know Coach and I are cousins, and I usually keep I'm hardest on my team, then I'm more forgiving towards other teams than I am my team. I tend to be, I tend to have just a higher level of demand for performance from my team expectations, and I always keep things tempered. I don't like to get my emotions too elevated because I don't, especially as a Giants fan for the past 10 years, a long time we've been, mostly very bad. And so I don't, the crash and burn is so much more difficult.
After 2 Super Bowls, though.
Yeah. Listen, some Giants fans are, go kind of crazy, but I'm older, so I've seen all the Super Bowls. So, I've got plenty to fall back onto, but there are many who don't. But me, myself, like, there's been too much pain over the past 10 years. So, yeah, I keep my expectations low.
Excellent. So we're going to dive into this thing shortly. I just want to mention, check us out on the Twitter at Toilets to Titles. I am on there at Coach Schepps. We are more than just a Cowboys-centric show. Or if you're here just for the Cowboys talk, that's excellent. We love you. We appreciate you, and thank you. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. Throw us a like. Throw us a comment. But if you want to hear some NFL draft talk, some fantasy football talk, we got a gambling show starting up on Fridays. If you want to hear all that, make sure you tune into all the other shows because we got tons of other content. We are running a listener league. It's called the Frank and Stank Listener League. It's going on year 4, and it is absolutely bananas. I promise you, there is nothing like it anywhere.
A lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun. We have about 30 spots open. I don't want to touch on this too much, but did you get a chance to listen to the episode this past week, or have you got anything that you've heard about?
Live.
Yeah. So what are your initial thoughts about year 4, Frank and Stank?
Oh, I like the without going into too much detail. I like some of the changes that we're making, like you and I were talking about just off screen a little bit a few minutes ago. A lot of the big changes have already been implemented from years 1 to last year was year 3. So year 3 was like a lot of changes, a lot of big changes, and that's kind of like all under control now. And there's some subtle changes now, heading into year 4, but we kind of have this monster, caged somewhat. Maybe there's an arm sticking out of the cage, but
Yeah.
pretty much, we got this monster cage, so I'm not going to give too much away, but it's really solidified, and I know people have a lot of fun. And last year, we were 5 divisions, 60 teams, and the plan this year is to go up to what, 88 divisions, 96 teams, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep, cool.
Yeah. So we
It's
have,
different. It's awesome.
of the 60 teams, we probably have about 40 returning. So we
Mhm.
have, so about 50 spots to fill.
Well,
And
cool.
I'd say somewhere between 40 and 50 returning, but
Yeah.
we'll get it
And
filled. But if you're interested, after you listen to this episode, or you can pause this, go check out, if you're on our YouTube, or even if you're on our audio platforms, go back. We have the show separated by show. So that was on Toilets to Titles. So the flagship show of this network. Go check
mhm.
out the Frankenstein episode, which was our last episode, just to get an idea if you want in. And if you do want in, reach out to us on email, toiletstotitles@gmail.com. Say Now About Them Cowboys sent you, or reach out to me on Twitter's at Coach Schepps. Say the same thing. I will get you into our gilded chat. I will get you into Frankenstein. So,
Yeah. Or you can reach out to any of us too on Twitter, like if you're a Giants fan who follows me on Twitter, reach out to me, and I'll forward you information. I'll take care of you. And also, it's only a $25 entry fee, and that's it. And you get a little money for winning your division. Also, of course, there's a Super Bowl champion, and you can win some of your money back other ways as well.
yeah, there's like 10 to 12 different ways to win your entry fee back. So there's a good chance. And we also donate, I think last year we donated 500 to the St. Jude's Children's Hospital. So
Yeah.
we usually let the winner decide which charity to donate it to. This year, the donation's up to $750. So the
Yeah.
winner will get to decide on that. All right. So let's move on. All right. Let's start. We're gonna rank top 5. We didn't discuss our rankings before going on air. Okay. So Andrew Campy is usually here, not here this morning. So I got Joe Knows from New York Giants Corner helping me out, and I think that's a good way to do this. Nice, even, and fair. So we're going to start with the offensive lineman. We're going to start with the exterior of the offensive lineman. So let's start with offensive tackle. So my top 2 offensive tackles. Okay, I have Lane Johnson from the Philadelphia Eagles
Mhm.
and Andrew Thomas from the New York Giants. Who are your top 2?
Yeah, at this point for me, it is. I'm with you, and I'm looking at Campy's list that he put together too over here. And Campy, good job, by the way, good job. Yeah, Lane Johnson. I agree. At this point, I'm going to go with Lane Johnson. I am going to go. I'm with you. I have Andrew Thomas at this point as the number 2 because Tyron Smith is gotten older.
He's not
Tyron
even
Smith.
on my top 5.
Okay, yeah, no, I do. I still have him there.
I'm just saying, like
Yeah. Oh no,
I don't.
I hear you for
I
offensive
think
tackle.
Terrence Steele's a better player.
Okay, I got you.
I
But
think
yeah, I'm
Terrence
still.
Steele is a better player than Tyler Smith at this point too.
Oh no, gotcha. But I am going to go with the veteran. I could see Tyron Smith having, and I'm not, obviously I'm the outside looking in when it comes to the other teams, including the Cowboys. But yeah, I have a lot of respect for Tyron Smith. And listen, players get older, but he's been such a really good left tackle for so long that I'm going to have Tyron Smith right behind Andrew Thomas.
Man, okay. So Campy has him 3. You have him 3.
Mhm.
I don't have him ranked. So for our consensus, I don't think we could put him at 3 because I don't have him ranked.
I
So
got you.
I'll put him on the list. I'll put him on the list. But who's your 4?
Um, I guess you know what I'm going to go with Campy actually over here at Jordan Mailata.
Okay, yeah, I have Jordan Mailata at 3. So let's put Jordan Mailata at 3. And just for, it's easier to discuss wide receivers, running backs, quarterbacks because they're more flashy. These guys,
Mhm.
you don't really see what they're doing. But Lane Johnson has an 84.8 offensive grade on PFF. Andrew Thomas has a 90.3 offensive grade. It's the only thing. Lane Johnson has a better pass blocking grade. Thomas has a better run blocking grade. So those 2 are phenomenal. And then Mailata has an 80.7, which is the
Yeah.
3rd highest offensive grade out of, he belongs up there. He's not as good as those 2, but I have him at 3. But go ahead, Joe.
No, I was going to say, I hear you. Andrew Thomas has the higher PFF grade, and listen, I love PFF. Some people are highly critical. I think they rely too much on PFF. I always just argue to people it's a great tool. It's not the one thing. There's other things such as the eye test as well, and just other context,
Right.
besides PFF. But with Lane Johnson, kind of like with Tyron Smith, I have to go with that longevity. And listen, I do not feel for any reason that Andrew Thomas is going to be backtracking. He's not going to have like a bad year or something like that. But that's why I'm keeping Lane Johnson at number one for me.
Tyron Smith, though, man, the longevity is a myth. How many
Mm,
games has he played in the last 3 years?
mm,
10,
yeah, yeah,
14?
no,
Like
I know.
he's done.
I'm actually kind of
He's
surprised he's
cooked.
back.
He's
Hmm.
cooked. They moved him to right tackle, and Terrence Steele is due for a contract. If they want to lock this guy up and give him some longevity, because Terrence Steele, his offensive grade is 73.9. His run back blocking grade was better than Jordan Mailata, but his pass blocking grade's not as significant. But the
Yeah.
Cowboys, when he got hurt, our run blocking got significantly worse, and that's when
Hmm.
Tyron Smith moved over there.
Yeah, yeah. He's a solid player, man. He's a solid player. And
And
you
I and
have
I
you
Go
have
ahead. I'm
Steele
sorry.
at what
I
at
have
number three in your
so
list?
mine is Lane Johnson, Andrew Thomas, Jordan Mailata, Terrence Steele, Tyler Smith.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I'll put Steele at five.
Okay.
And I have a lot of interest in Tyler Smith. He's someone who I know was a controversial pick 2 drafts ago, but when he was picked, if like other teams had drafted him, this is what I was my instant reaction on the people who scoffed at the pick. I'm like, if these were other teams, say like the Giants who had picked him, I'd be like, oh, what are you doing? But the Cowboys have a history of drafting
Yeah.
very well, and especially offensive linemen, and how to develop offensive linemen. So that's why Tyler Smith, I'm like, I'm not. Maybe he'll only wind up being good at guard, but I think he'll be a damn good guard. But I haven't given up on him as
Oh.
as being a really good tackle, either left or right. Take your pick.
Well, but having him at 5 doesn't mean
Hmm.
I've given up on him either.
Oh, right.
It
He's
mean
young.
like, but also this guy's ahead of him. Johnson and Thomas are all pros.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think
Mhm.
Mailata is
Yeah,
a Pro
it's
Bowler,
it's
and
it's
Steele
proven
just
commodities. Yeah,
Steele is more experienced. But Tyler Smith, they moved him. He's left tackle now.
yeah.
Tyron Smith's healthy currently. Terrence Steele isn't because he's recovering from an injury. But even with Tyron back, Tyler's at left tackle. And the only person that's going to move when Terrence comes back, I assume, is Tyron Smith. And
Hmm.
I think he'll be the swing tackle. I think that's the smart thing to do. All right, let's move
Yeah.
into interior offensive line. So why don't you give me your top 3 for the interior offensive line?
You know what? I'm gonna go for top three interior line. Okay, I'm putting Travis Kelsey number one.
Okay.
That man is
Jason
non.
Kelsey.
I'm sorry, Jason Kelsey. Yes, I always get the two confused. One of those Kelsey brothers. I'm putting Kelsey number one. Again, longevity, still plays at a very high level. Um, I remember he in the Giants Eagles playoff game, which was an ass kicking all the way around. But Dexter Lawrence, our young defensive tackle who just got that big extension. He had an awesome season. He was handled by old man Jason Kelsey. He was handled just fine, and that wasn't the only reason why they lost. But that was disappointing to see. So I'm going to go with Kelsey number one. And yeah, Zach Martin, I'm putting him at number two. Really good player for a long time. Came out the same draft as OBJ, and I remember Zach Martin was the player I wanted. And I
And
remember being like,
Aaron Donald came out that year as well.
yeah, yeah. I think Aaron Donald, went in between the two.
Right.
And I'm like, even at that point, we needed offensive line. Like 10 years ago. I remember thinking, oh, I wanted Zach Martin, and we got OBJ. I'm like, I don't want OBJ. And of course, after I saw him play, I'm like, holy man, I
Oh
better,
my
I better start.
dude, what a 2-year span for that player. Like,
Yeah,
talk about
yeah.
like better to burn out than
Injuries.
fade away. Like
Yeah.
he like burned bright. That was electrifying.
But I remember Zach Martin was the player that I wanted. So yeah, I'll put Zach Martin number two. Um, you know what, number three for the interior, and I'll go with I see Cappy has got Landon Dickerson here. I like that. I like that number 3, and yeah, I'll go with the number. I'll go with Landon Dickerson at number 3,
Well, let me
and
give my top three. So
mhm,
Campy has Zach Martin, Jason Kelsey, Landon Dickerson.
mhm.
I have Zach Martin, Jason Kelsey, John Michael Schmitz, the rookie.
We'll
And
see.
this is projecting, but I saw him
Mhm.
at the Senior Bowl, so
Yep.
I saw him. He was the best. Usually, Zach Martin. I'm not putting them in the same class, but Zach Martin went to the Senior Bowl.
Mhm.
Aaron Donald went to the Senior Bowl. Zach Martin was the best offensive lineman at the Senior Bowl that year. John Michael Schmitz, the best offensive lineman in the Senior Bowl this year. So I'd say consensus. I'll put Martin first because me and Campy had him first,
Yep.
Kelsey second, and then Dickerson third. But now you give me your 4 and 5.
Okay, so well, and John Michael Schmitz, I'm with you. Like, yeah, listen, you guys, our team members here, Toilets and Titles that went down to the Senior Bowl, everybody was very impressed with John Michael Schmitz. And that's what I've heard from other content creators who were down at the Senior Bowl as well, is that they all felt that JMS um he proved out the most. He looked the best. And so yeah, I was very, believe me, when he felt it was a 57, I was very excited. It's funny. I think the interior offensive line of the NFC East is, somewhat lacking, to be honest. I think our tackles tend to be a lot, as a division, tend to be a lot better than our interior offensive linemen. There is a player here that I like, who I wanted badly last year, I believe it was, in Tyler Biadasz,
Be honest.
and
3 years ago,
Biadasz.
yeah.
Was
uh
it 3 years ago? Get
Yeah,
out of
out
here!
of Wisconsin. Yeah.
Oh, out of Wisconsin, right? I love those Wisconsin offensive linemen, which Joe Tippmann came out of Wisconsin to the Jets in the second round this year, and I was very excited. If the Giants hadn't gone Schmitz, I would have been very happy with Tippmann. But I'll tell you what, I'll go with Schmitz at number 4.
Fair. I put him there for consensus because Campy
Mhm,
has him 5. I have him 3. You have him 4. So consensus to average it out. So I put for consensus Zach Martin, Jason Kelsey, Landon Dickerson, John Michael
mhm.
Schmitz, and then Tyler Biotish.
Yeah.
But I don't have Biotish on my list. I have my 5 is Charles Leno Jr. out of the Washington Commanders.
Oh, okay. I'll tell you, I think Washington's putting together a very good interior offensive line. Because they also I just mentioned, they just drafted Joe Tippmann out of Wisconsin in the second round. He was the first center off this in this draft who was taken, and he's not as polished as JMS, but he's got a higher upside with his athleticism. Very, very powerful and very athletic. And like I said, if my Giants had wound up with him in round number 2 instead of JMS, I wouldn't have had a problem at all. So he's kind of like my 5B. He's like in terms of projection, when we're talking about JMS, I
Right.
almost Tippmann actually almost made my top 5 there, but he just missed it.
Yeah, yeah, strong player, strong player. All right, let's move on to tight ends. All
Mm.
right, so we're starting to get into skill. These are linemen with skill. So let's hear your top 3 tight ends.
Yeah, I'll go with definitely gonna go. I'm gonna go with Goddard as number 1. He's got, at this point. Listen, I'm very happy that my Giants got Darren Waller, but you have to look at the injuries over the past 2 years. Um, and hopefully he'll stay healthy, and obviously the potential is there. But I got to go with Goddard at number 1. I will put Waller at number 2.
So I'm just going to chime in that all 3 of us have Goddard 1, Waller 2.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
consensus locked in. And Goddard finally with Zach Ertz moving on 2 years ago, got their 1-2 punch. Doug Peterson used them perfectly, and
Hmm.
then I know they switched over to new
Yeah.
coaching with Sirianni, but now he's an excellent blocker. He's an
Mm.
excellent pass catcher. He's tough as nails. Like
Hmm.
he does it
Oh yeah,
all.
he
So
does.
I think Dallas
And,
Goddard is a top 5 tight end in the entire league.
yeah, and he stays relatively healthy too. He's a pain in the ass.
Yes,
He
yes,
is.
right. All right. So who's your 3, 4, 5?
You know what? I'll go with, actually. Listen, I think the NFC East is somewhat lacking in tight ends, and I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm wrong about that. It's because, there aren't that many really good tight ends around the entire league. So maybe I'm being a little too hard on our division. But I will go with. I'm looking at Campy's list over here, and I will go with Spoonmaker at number 3. I'm not going to go with Logan Thomas, who's number 4. He just scares me. Yeah, skill wise, absolutely. That dude, talk about injuries. That guy's an injury waiting to happen.
Right.
No offense, but I just can't. I can't put him above. I can't put ahead of Schoonmaker, who's never seen the end. I know Schoonmaker, who I think is a sneaky good pick by Dallas this year. I'm sure he's gonna be from the get go, pretty much from week 1 or week 2. Schoonmaker is gonna be a big part of this offense for the Cowboys, and they love using their tight ends.
He
And
had the 15th highest receiving grade in the nation, with
mhm,
Michigan not targeting him nearly
yeah,
as much as he needed to be. But he also had the second highest run blocking grade of all tight ends in the nation.
yeah,
So he
three
could
down
run
tight ends.
block, So I had Logan Thomas ahead of him, but maybe that
Mhm.
was me, being afraid to be a
It
homer,
makes sense because
you know.
he's the proven guy. Schoonmaker's
Yeah.
never even been on the field.
Right. But I'll average it out. I'll put Schoonmaker 3. Logan
Mhm,
Thomas, if he stays in the field, the kid can play. Or he's
mhm,
grown. He's an adult now. He's probably only got 2 or 3 years left. But
yeah.
made the transition from quarterback to tight end, which usually does not happen successfully. So
Mhm.
Logan Thomas, and then I got Jake Ferguson five. Campy has him 5. Is there anybody else you'd
You know what?
consider? I had
For me,
Bellinger. I have
it's
Bellinger
that's
on.
the thing.
He's fringe.
It's like, you know what? Honestly, if the Giants didn't pick up Waller this year, Bellinger actually would have made my list here. It's funny because Ferguson was going back to last year's draft was I think it was fourth round, and when we got Bellinger, and Ferguson was the guy that I actually had my eye on for the Giants, and I actually had him and Bellinger as pretty much the same player, but I just like that he was coming out of Wisconsin, Ferguson, that is. But when I took Bellinger, I was happy with it. I'll go. You know what? I'll go with you. I'll go with the consensus. I agree. I'll go with Ferguson because I think that I have a feeling this year the Cowboys are going to make more use out of Ferguson um, than the Giants will with Bellinger, just
Yeah, the,
because
the the Cowboys
they
like to
picked up.
rotate. Like they like to
Yeah,
scheme in their tight ends.
yeah, and Bellinger, I think is going. I think you're going to see a lot of two tight end sets on the Giants this year because he is a good blocker. But with Waller being out there, assuming he stays healthy, we're going to see less of Bellinger in the receiving game. And not that he was Waller in the receiving game, but he turned out to be what I thought he is, and that is like a dependable option. A nice outlet for the quarterback when he's under duress, and and just like a savvy player who can pick up like that 3rd and 9, who can do it consistently.
Love it. All right. Let's move on to quarterbacks. But before we do that, I want to mention if you want to support the show, check out our Patreon, patreon.com/toilets to titles. Tier 1 is $1.50. Gets you a free lanyard, gets you into our gilded chat, gets you access to the gilded tier, in which we have Patreon exclusive content, and it also guarantees you entry into Frankenstein. All 3 things. $1.50 supports the show. I mentioned the Senior Bowl earlier. We're going to things like the Senior Bowl, Combine, Draft. We are covering all these things live and giving you live. I mean, we interviewed, tons of guys at the
Yeah,
Senior Bowl. So if you go look through our YouTube channel, if you're new to the show, like we're doing, tons. I mean, JL Skinner, Cody Mauk, uh, Jamie Robinson, like
yeah.
tons of players on there. If you want to check that out, you want to support the show, you want to help us get to those places, patreon.com/toilets titles. Go ahead, Joe.
And I do want to say too, what was really, really, really cool. Yeah, if you are someone who loves not just college football, but you want to learn more about the players leading up to the draft for your team, follow us because, like Coach just said, this year, and it's going to be every year going forward. We had a team at Senior Bowl, a team at the Combine, a team, and we had someone that we had Jared Gray at the draft day. Well, at least day 1 and 2, we were getting the picks like a minute before they were announced.
Yeah.
I was putting them out there on Twitter, like before they were announced. So it was very cool.
And now this year, the Shrine Bowl is at AT&T Stadium. So I'm going to try to get
Ah,
there as well. So we're covering all that stuff. And also, even if you don't want to support the show financially, if you want to get into our gilded chat on the regular level, reach out to me on the Twitter at Coach Schepps or at Joe at JoJ_Clark or the show at Toilets to Titles. We will get you the link to the gilded. You'll join the title tribe. And that's where we talk all things NFL, fantasy football, gambling, draft, whatever. We'll talk about all of it. You bring it up. You show
mhm.
us your roster. You ask us questions, whatever. Obviously, if you want some more in-depth analysis on that stuff, Patreon, but base level title tribe, you support us, we're going to support you. So let's move on to quarterbacks. So Joe, who are your top 2 quarterbacks or top 3? Let's go. Who are your top 3 quarterbacks in the NFC East?
Now we're moving on to the fantasy football relevant players.
Yes, exactly.
Which always makes things easier and more clear cut, I think.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, at this point, I definitely got to go with Hurts number 1. And I got to go with Prescott. I have to go with Prescott number 2. What do you think about, do you, as a Cowboys fan, do you have any concern with Prescott going forward? I saw last year as just an anomaly. Like, it's not like he's 37 years old. He did get injured in the beginning of the year. He did miss like the first 6 games or whatever it was. He did not play well last year. But it was very un-Prescott like, and it was 1 year.
I thought he played well, but had bonehead moments.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a few off games. With the way our team is structured, I think players believe in him. I think his teammates believe in him. I think his teammates want to play hard for him. And I think he knows the offense. This year we got Mike McCarthy, but he's been, Mike McCarthy, I think if anything, it's going to be more simplified than it was with Kellen Moore.
McCarthy's been fine as a head coach in my
opinion. But he's the offensive coordinator this year. So I don't think it's going to be changing verbiage. I don't think it's going to be throwing new stuff on his plate. I think if anything, it's going to be toning it down and running the football a little more. So with the way our defense is trending, I know we still got Tony Pollard. I think the rushing game should get better this season. Mm-hmm. I think this is a very quarterback-friendly team, and I think you need a leader at that position with this team. And I think he is that leader. I think he is a competitor.
Agree.
I think he had some big mistakes at inopportune times.
Mm-hmm.
He needs to make better decisions with the football. Like before the half, when we're driving, when a field goal would work and he's throwing the ball down the middle and right into traffic. He also had big moments, big plays. I liked how he was a little more willing to run in big games, in big moments, and in the playoffs, because we need to see that side from him. I don't want to see that from him for 17 games.
Right.
I want to see that in pivotal games, and I want to see it in the playoffs, because that makes him dynamic. So am I worried? I don't think so, because I don't think this player is different really than he was from the jump. I think the team was a little different. I think the running attack was not very good. The offensive line was not very good, but I think the line will get better. The rushing tackle will get better. His weapons weren't very, he's got Brandon Cooks now. Michael Gallup, second year removed from an ACL, and supposedly he's looking very well. And he doesn't have the pressure on him to be that number 2. So I think everything was down around him. He stayed the same. Guys were dropping balls. A lot of his interceptions were balls bouncing off a guy's chest or a guy making a bonehead mistake. So I think
I've seen that with my team.
Everything around him, I think, is kind of lifted up, and that'll be good for him. So that's my thoughts.
No, I only bring that up only because I've heard I guess just talking heads, experts, questioning, and I thought it was unnecessary, going too far, just questioning him and what does last year mean? And I just saw last year as an anomaly. Maybe it was just a way to get views and clicks. I don't know. With the huge
if you're a Cowboys quarterback, you're going to get scrutinized.
Oh yeah. And so I'm like, I was always like, this year was an anomaly. There's no reason to think it's not the guy's 37 years old, and at any point he can go off the cliff in terms of talent. I'm like, last year was an anomaly. So
right, but Jalen Hurts, he's a superstar.
Absolutely.
He's got great weapons around him, with A.J. Brown, with Devontae Smith, with Dallas Goedert, had Miles Sanders and Kenneth Gainwell. Now he's got DeAndre Swift. So he's, also got a lot of help.
100%.
But he's a superstar.
That's what quarterbacks need too, though.
Yeah.
I make this point to other, Giants fans who are bitch and complain about Daniel Jones or, lack of production. And I look at it as I'm glad with what he's, overall glad with what he's done, especially last year with what he's had to work with. I always point out to other people, look at your successful quarterbacks. They have good weapons around them. They have at least a decent NFL offensive line. So you need to have a quarterback, isn't going to just win a Super Bowl with a crappy team around him. You got to have the talent. You make the talent work.
Right. Peyton Manning is probably one of the best quarterbacks for this discussion because not only how talented he was,
Mm-hmm.
how wise he was and intelligent he was, and how much
Next
of a
level.
game manager he was.
Mm-hmm.
So he wasn't just talented.
Mm-hmm.
He was bright, very, very bright. And he
Yeah.
still needed Marvin Harrison, Reggie Wayne, Dallas Clark, Edgerrin James, Marshall Faulk, you
Yeah.
know?
What if you had put it? What if you switched? What if you switched? For their careers. What if you switched Peyton Manning and Tom Brady? Would Tom Brady still have won, 6 Super Bowls with the Patriots and gone to 9 with the Patriots if he were on the,
The-
would he have done that with the Colts? Would
Right,
Peyton Manning had only won one Super Bowl with the Patriots if he were with Bill Belichick?
right.
Like,
Hard to
there's
say.
so much. Yeah, you want those great quarterbacks. Don't
Right.
get me wrong, but they're not going to just do it themselves.
Right, right. They need help. And I think Trevor Lawrence getting Doug Peterson and getting some weapons, we saw a
Yep.
huge jump from year 1 to year 2. And now year 3, I think you're going to see another because everything's getting a little bit better around him. Bringing in Tank Bigsby, another good rushing, strong rusher. It's going to be a short yardage back, Calvin Ridley. So we're getting off topic here. So we got Jalen Hurts 1, Dak Prescott 2, and I'm assuming I got Daniel Jones 3. I'm assuming you
Yeah.
got him right there.
Oh yeah, Daniel Jones is a solid number 3, ascending. My boy Danny Dimes
And he
ascending.
needs help.
Oh God, absolutely. Yeah, and he's been, I love what this front office for the Giants have done. And as a Giants fan, I promise I won't take too much time on Daniel Jones, but I like the way they've been building the team and the offense around him. We're still lacking a wide receiver one. Who knows? Maybe Jalen Hyatt at some point early in his career can take that leap. That's not my expectation. I do expect him to be a very, very valuable weapon in an arsenal. So we're still missing at wide receiver one. Darren Waller, people like to say, I'm very happy we got him. People like to say, well, he can act as your wide receiver one. I still want a wide receiver one. All right. It's not Daniel Jones. I love Daniel Jones. I love him. I'm a Giants fan who loves him. I don't expect him to be Patrick Mahomes, who you just give him a Travis Kelsey and then surround him with mediocre wide receivers and he's going to win a Super Bowl. I never expect that. So I do want a wide receiver one as well. But I like how they built up. We'll see what happens with the offensive line, but I like the way it's trending. I like that we added depth at the wide receiver position. It's his second year in this very creative offensive scheme with a superstar running back in Saquon Barkley. I'm very excited about Daniel Jones on the ascent.
So then I got Sam Howell 4, and I have Jacoby Brissett 5. Campy has Cooper Rush, but
You know what?
Cooper Rush won games last year. But if you look at the numbers, they
He,
weren't.
he,
Go
he
ahead.
played. I agree with you. Like I know where you're going, and I'm with you, Coach. Like I'm not. This is no slam against Cooper Rush. I remember last year that I'm not a Cowboys fan, but I'd see a lot like on Twitter, like, oh, we should go with Cooper Rush, over Dak Prescott. After a guy started off like 4-1, 5-1, whatever it was, I'm like, you're nuts. You're
Yes.
crazy. And that's nothing against Cooper Rush. But I do think there's a ceiling. I think what you were getting to is that, he played on a very good team with a very good defense, and he didn't have to do all that much.
And everything was clicking. That offense was
Yes.
absolutely like when he
Yep.
came in, hitting on
Mhm.
all cylinders.
Yeah. I still think that if Dak had played last year like Dak normal, Dak normally, I think they would have beaten the 49ers, and it would have been a
Pollard
hell of a
didn't get
match.
hurt too.
Yeah, yeah, and I think they would have beaten the 49ers, and I think they would have I don't know if they would have beaten the Eagles, but it would have been a bloodbath on that field in the NFC Championship game. But I'll go with you. I agree with you with Brissett at number 5 because he's a proven commodity too. He's had success over years. He's proven that he can step in and win games, and play at a fairly high level, for a stretch of time. But I do want to talk just real quick, Sam Howell. I'm very intrigued by Sam Howell. I know people don't really talk about him. No one expects too much from him. I'm not necessarily. I liked him coming out of college. Going into his final year of college, he was actually he may have been the top QB in college football for that draft class heading into his final year of college at UNC. But he entered his final year, pretty much all of his weapons like That's it. Like they were top two receivers, Amari Rogers, and there was someone else who were drafted. Top two running, it was like the top running
Daz
back.
Newsome,
Daz, Daz Newsome. They're
Amari
not
Rogers
household names, but
was,
they
I
were
believe,
very productive in
Clemson.
college.
Daz Newsome, and there was
Okay,
another guy. I
so it
can't
wasn't
think.
Amari Rogers. Okay, but there were two wide receivers. They're not household names, but they produced very well in college. And then he had a great running back duo as well. All those guys went in the same year, and that's when Howell didn't really produce his final year at NCAA. Went in the fifth round, I guess it was, to Washington, and I have not given up on Howell, and he's got weapons to play with at Washington.
Right. All right, I'm going to move on to running backs, and I'm going to go first because Campy's got Saquon over Pollard. Do you have Saquon over Pollard? I'm assuming you do. I
Yes.
don't.
Mm-hmm.
And here's why. All right. I know Saquon is the big name, and obviously he has the potential to be a superstar. Okay. I'm going to tell you some numbers. And I know PFF isn't the end all be all, but I'm going to start with PFF, and then I'm going to start with some hard data. His grade, Tony Pollard, offensive, 90.2. Saquon Barkley, 80.3. His rushing grade was 90. Saquon Barkley's 84.9. His receiving grade was 76. Saquon Barkley's was 58. 51 missed tackles forced for Pollard. 41 missed tackles forced for Saquon. Pollard did it in 102 less carries. Pollard had 1,007 yards. Saquon had 1,312. So Pollard had 5.2 yards per carry, which I don't think, if you give him 100 more carries, I don't think he gets that. But I think I think it would come down a little bit. He had 9 rushing touchdowns as opposed to Saquon Barkley's 10 rushing touchdowns. And the Cowboys offense last year had a down year. Their offensive line was banged up. So all of those things lead me to believe right now in the current situation, 10 more missed tackles forced in 100 less carries.
Yeah, those are great. Those are great arguments to make. But I'll go with Saquon, who's done it like as the starting running back, for at least 2 seasons. It was one season where he missed. I'm looking at like overall career, and people see him as like an injury-prone running back. I don't see it that way. He had one ACL tear where he missed an entire year, and then the next year back, I guess it was his fourth year, where basically he wasn't the same running back. He was basically, still recovering from that injury. And people point out, and I think rightfully so, normally it's going to take a full year on the field to actually get back from an ACL tear. So I hear you in terms of the production. I still see Dallas even last year in a down year for you guys. For you guys, is still a more efficient offense, than the Giants. And they don't have a CD Lamb. They don't have this is and it's an offense that was we weren't even stable at wide receiver until the
Right.
second half of the season when Isaiah Hodgins came in. So I'm gonna go. I'll stick. I like your arguments. I'm gonna stick with Saquon as the proven commodity. But I thought, listen, keeping Pollard on the tag was absolutely the right way to go. The guy is a superstar in the making, and I don't want to go too much up on running backs, but I find it funny how people always criticize the running back position and how it doesn't have value, but yet teams will still take running backs in the first round, where we saw 2 go this year. You'll still see running backs tagged at $10.1 million, where if the running back position doesn't mean so much, and if these guys are so replaceable, why even spend $10 million on these guys?
Yeah.
So I got Pollard right behind him.
Campy has Saquon 1. You have Saquon 1. So consensus, I'm going to put Saquon 1. Okay.
Mhm.
But Pollard's close. And one thing that kind of drives me nuts about Barkley, and you might have better, I don't want to touch on it too much more, but Barkley, I feel like, does a lot of his damage in 2 plays. He's not consistently 3, 4,
Sure.
3, 4. It's 40 yards, 1. Go ahead.
Oh yeah. Oh no. I listen. My preferred running back is always going to be a banger up the middle. He's consistently giving you like 4.5, 5 yards. that is, that's normally my type of. I like physical running backs, but he is a threat in the receiving game too. So, but I understand I hear no, you're absolutely right. That's the type of player that he is. But I also think it is the type of player that he is. It's his type of game, but it's also playing with what he's had to play with too.
Right.
Like the Giants' offensive line for a long time has been,
They got
you know,
2 first rounders on the outsides with
well,
Andrew
no,
Thomas,
Andrew Thomas is great, but
Evan
listen,
Neal.
hopefully Evan Neal can take an Andrew
Right.
Thomas like jump
Yeah. Yeah.
this year. But we know that, or at least as Giants fans, it wasn't he wasn't Andrew Thomas last year.
Yeah.
Far from it.
All right, and then I got DeAndre Swift 3. Huge addition to an already awesome Philadelphia offense. Awesome offensive line coming out of Georgia. Just do it all, everything you need. Now, I don't think the Philadelphia Eagles are going to run him into the ground. I think they're
They
going to
don't need to.
continue to do their rotation,
Mhm.
but I still think he is the third most talented back, and I think
Absolutely.
he's very close to the top. If he could, I don't know what was up in Detroit. I don't know if the coach didn't like him or if the coach just knew they were kind of both on the way out. So he ran Jamal Williams a lot more. But I do think DeAndre
Mhm.
Swift is more talented than he was shown off as being in the and the Philadelphia Eagles offense. I don't think you're going to see monster games from Swift every single week, but I bet you there's going to be 4 or 5 signature performances this season from DeAndre Swift.
Yeah, he would scare me. Swift would scare me a little bit in fantasy, depending upon where I'm drafting him, because they don't need to play him, like an RB1, like,
Right.
feed him the ball, feed him the ball. But he's going to be woven into the receiving game as well. So he's going to definitely have his value. But I think DeAndre Swift is clear cut number 3,
Right.
RB in this division.
All right, I got Brian Robinson next from Washington, and then I have Antonio Gibson from Washington. Cam's got Brian Robinson, Kenneth Gainwell. So you're going to be the deciding factor. Who's your 4 and 5?
I'll go with Gibson as number 5, and Brian Robinson he's my type of running back. He's a thumper. I like him a lot, and so I'll have him at number 4. But yeah, listen, he's going to be the RB1 in Washington. I mean, that's obvious. But I like his game. I like when he was drafted. I remember even before that draft, like, I bring up Brian Robinson's name on Twitter or whatever and discussions, and people were kind of dismissive of him. I'm like, I like this guy a lot. If you can get him in late rounds, you're going to get some really good value. And but I think
There's something
Washington's
to be
got something
said about
going.
an Alabama running back who
Mhm.
goes the distance, doesn't
Yep.
transfer,
Mhm.
sees reps, doesn't star, but sticks around and does well. Like
Yeah.
usually guys like you look at Josh Jacobs, that's kind of how his career was at
Yeah.
Alabama. And he comes to the NFL. Even Najee Harris, he wasn't on a Derrick Henry level, So
Yeah.
all right, so I like it. And Gibson to me is in a situation. I don't think he's as talented as Swift, but he's getting the Swift treatment in Washington.
Yeah. Understandably, you kind of get, listen, you get tired of these players. I can imagine as a head coach, as a front office, you know, you go into season after season relying on these guys, and then Gibson's talented. It's just, a matter, is he available? So, but I think Gibson's too talented not to have as the number 5.
I love it. All right, so now let's move on to wide receivers. Let's wrap this thing up. Campy's got A.J. Brown, CeeDee Lamb. I'm going to tell you, I got CeeDee Lamb over A.J. Brown. I like CD. I like A.J. Brown a lot, but I think CeeDee Lamb ascending. I think he's a little less injury prone. A.J. Brown's not a big injury guy, but he usually misses 2 or 3 games a year with something like a hamstring or something minor.
Yeah.
Both similarly graded out on PFF. Both excellent with the football in their hands. Both excellent at tracking the football. CeeDee Lamb, I think they both had 7 drops, but CeeDee Lamb had it on less targets. So I have CeeDee Lamb 1, but A.J. Brown a very close 2.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I have Lamb as my 1A and Brown as my 1B, and Lamb is the ascending player. So, listen, listen, CeeDee Lamb has a really good number 2 with him now, and Brandon Cooks. I never felt like I like Gallup, like you said earlier in the show. I like Gallup as a number 3. I think Cooks is a better proven commodity. He's going to help Lamb out a lot, but I'm with you. I'm going to have CeeDee Lamb a little ahead of AJ Brown at this point.
All right, and then I got Terry McLaurin 3, Camp is Terry
Mhm.
McLaurin 3, and then I have Devontae
Yeah,
Smith 4, and Camp doesn't have Smith till 5. So who are your 4, 5?
you know what? I'll go hesitantly McLaurin number 3, but I'm kind of getting down on McLaurin.
What don't you like? I think McLaurin. I
QB
like
play
Dotson.
is
Jahan Dotson is
mhm,
he creates, I think, bigger passing windows.
mhm,
And I think a quarterback is more likely to target him
yes,
that that's afraid of making a mistake. But Terry McLaurin, he might not create as big of passing windows, but he's
mhm,
a big physical wide receiver with a big
yes,
catch radius who
yeah,
knows how to position himself
mhm,
between the quarterback and the defender and catch the football. I think Terry
yeah,
McLaurin's the better receiver, but I think
and
he's
he
been in a situation where he's not getting targeted as much because the quarterbacks are afraid to chuck it
and
in there.
he and he's also played with subpar quarterbacks too.
He's an
Um,
Ohio State wide receiver. Like those guys
yeah,
come out and Brian Hartline knows how to coach them up.
yeah, he's played with subpar wide receivers. So yeah, you know what? I guess you're right. McLaurin's got to be the number. He's got to be the number 3. Um, that's the thing. It's I'm more like looking at like, all right, Cooks and Devonta Smith between those two. I'll gotta go with Devonta Smith at number 4,
I got Devontae Smith for as well.
and that's really close between him and Cooks. I so badly would have put Dotson on the list, but I can't. I can't. I before the show, I texted Coach and I said I might have surprised, for the list on wide receivers, Jahan Dotson, because I love Jahan Dotson. They call him the vacuum for a reason. The dude
Yes.
catches everything, and we didn't get to see him enough last year because of injuries.
It's
Go ahead.
funny. It's funny there's no giant on here. Well, it's not funny. But
Well, understandable.
this is the position. Well, like
Mhm.
going into my statement, like this is the position where I think is the most heavy in the NFC
Yeah.
East. Like, because you could have Dotson probably might be in the top 5 in other divisions, but the NFC East is so strong
Mhm.
at wide receiver with 3 teams really only
Yeah.
submitting, Hyatt will probably be on there next year, but I think
Yeah. Well.
if this was year 2 or 3 for Cooks, I'd put him close with Devontae Smith, but I also think Devontae Smith doesn't get his flowers because he's
Mhm.
got a guy like AJ Brown next to him. Devontae Smith is probably the most explosive wide receiver
Mhm.
on this list.
Yeah.
Elite route runner, snappy breaks, good hands.
Good hands.
He's just not as good after the catch as CeeDee Lamb and AJ Brown. He's not as physical as those two. So I don't
Right.
really have him in the wide receiver 1 category, but
Yeah.
dude's a weapon.
Yeah. He's not at their level. He's right below it, and I don't think he'll ever be at their level. Devonta Smith. Even if AJ Brown were to go down, I don't think he's ever going to be AJ Brown good. But yeah, so I do have to keep. Yeah, I don't want to make too much out of Dotson because for me he's a projection. He's more of a projection. But I'm so enamored with him.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. All right. Offense is done. So next week, maybe we'll link back up. Next week, we're doing defense. Make sure to check us out on the Twitter at Toilets
Yeah,
and Titles.
totally.
We're going to take these rankings. We're going to make them graphics. We're going to throw them up there. If you're watching the show, I hope you've been commenting to let us know where we're wrong, where we're right, who's making the good decisions, who's making the bad decisions. If you want to get in the Gilded chat, reach out to the show at Toilets and Titles or reach out to me at Coach Schepps, patreon.com/Toilets Titles. If you have Apple Podcasts, throw us a 5-star review. And Joe, let everybody know where they can find you and when your shows are, man.
Yeah, well, my Twitter handle is at @JoeJ_Clark. That's CLARK, and I host New York Giants Corner Wednesday nights around 8:15 ish p.m. Eastern Standard Time Wednesday nights. So that's the show that I host. So please check it out.
All right, check it out. And if you hate the Giants, you can just go in there, support. You can support the
That's
team
all good.
and just be in
Yeah,
there and just say boo the whole
I I
time.
I address any and all comments. I'm all good with that.
All right. Hey, everybody, enjoy your week. We will catch you all later on. Take care. What's up, Title Tribe? We appreciate you watching the show. If you want to catch up on all of our college football content, make sure you subscribe to the CFB Nation by clicking their link below. Make sure you subscribe to the Toilets Titles Podcast Network by clicking our link below. And make sure to catch our other content by watching these videos to the side.